Hey, do you want me to lead you on some interesting history of Matt?
Sure.
I have a kidney stone right now, and it really fucking hurts.
Oh no.
And this episode is going to be like passing a kidney stone.
You spook easily, Starling?
Not yet, sir.
A killer is on the loose.
Keeps them alive for 3 days. Then he shoots them, skins them, and dumps them.
A rookie FBI agent is on his trail.
He's got real physical strength, cautious, precise, and he's never impulsive. He'll never stop.
Hello, welcome back to the Waffle Press Retrospectives. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me is Matt Garingo. We're here to talk about the Hannibal Lecter series. We talked about Manhunter. We're going to talk about Silence of the Lambs. But Matt, what else are we going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about the fact that this is the second time we've done this episode. So, folks at home, just so Diego can't get the wool over your eyes any longer, the Manhunter episode has been released. The Hannibal episode has been recorded, and we're redoing the Silence of the Lambs episode. I don't know what the fuck he did.
Okay, so here's what happened. I have been upgrading my computer, hard drives, CPU. I got a whole new system going on with my PC.
Good time to do that.
Yeah, it was great.
In the middle of a retrospective.
Well, it didn't lose anything else. I lost my backup folder. And I guess when I was saving all my Premiere files, because I edit on Premiere for these things, all the backups I have are gone, but all the originals are there.
So where's the original?
With the exception of Silence of the Lambs. So
what the fuck happened?
I don't know.
The public demands answers, Diego. This administration promised more transparency. So we had all this great shit in the previous episode. I did this whole bit about Silence of the Hams with Don DeLuise, which I now cannot repeat. All of it has been lost to time. You've deprived the world of a great piece of art.
You know, we actually did have a really good episode. And
It was fucking fantastic. I also let slip all my intimate knowledge of serial killers, and I got a real reaction from Diego.
Yeah, I was like, "What? Whoa!" It caught me off guard.
So I will that, but now I know to tone that down a little bit. So we've lost the realness of the original episode.
We gotta do it like Iñárritu. Just fucking get it for real. Make Tom Hardy choke a motherfucker.
That's how you make movies.
Yeah, that's how you get Oscars.
Apparently. It's not like the Academy is easily impressed by stupid stunts. Speaking of the Academy.
Silence of the Lambs won a bunch of Oscars the year it was released.
It swept the Oscars. You people ever hear about that?
Because it's fucking good.
Did you know that one?
But it was uncommon, and it's still pretty uncommon. Get Out and Shape of Water are horror movies that actually did really well this Oscars season.
Yeah.
But that doesn't usually happen.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
Did we record oh, shit. Oh, my God. Another reason why that episode was great and then lost forever. We did it on Oscar night.
Oh, fuck.
And I was making all sorts of jokes about the Oscars.
We're here to talk about Silence of the Lambs.
Are we? Sorry. I'm a little upset.
It's fair. Unofficial sequel to Manhunter. It's fucking good. Directed by Jonathan Demme. Starring Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. All three of those
people have done other movies. I'm bringing the good shit tonight.
Yes, they have. They're actors and directors. They need to make a living. Yes.
People get paid for goods and services. Here's something, though, I left out of the episode, and this is something I really shouldn't have left out. Gene Hackman wanted to play Hannibal Lecter.
What?
He got the ball rolling on doing a Silence of the Lambs movie because he was really interested in playing Hannibal Lecter.
Wow, I had no idea about that. This is shocking.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, he would have been Lex Luthor and Hannibal Lecter, two of cinema's great villains.
Yeah. Both upstaged by Jesse Eisenberg.
So, Silence of the Lambs continues the Hannibal Lecter mythos. Introduces us to Clarice Starling And it's not a continuation from Manhunter, but it spiritually it is. In the books it is, but
if it was done today, it would be called a reboot.
Yeah. Huh, how about that? Oh, a reboot has won an Oscar.
A sequel seaboot.
All these fucking names. Who gives fucking...
This is the book. It was a sequel to the book Red Dragon, which was adapted into Manhunter. It's the interesting thing is that I think I pointed out in the Manhunter episode is that they kind of set up like Bill Graham and Lecter as kind of a Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, like nemesis, and then Will Graham never shows up in any of the other books. And instead, we get Clarice Starling, which is an interesting. But I think it's easier for the audience because she's just an FBI trainee, and I think it helps ease us into this world of criminal profiling. Better than Will Graham did.
It's more grounded, I think. This approach, it's because Manhunter's very stylized. Silence of the Lambs is subtly stylized. It's not in your face about that we talk about a lot with this series, but like the gothic horror aspect of it.
It really knows when to because you can actually feel the switch without it feeling jarring when it goes from being standard police procedural to straight up gothic horror. I mean, once you get to the institution where they keep Lecter, it's almost like an old dark castle. So, with a deep secret hidden underneath.
Yeah, it is. That's where it starts to get more hyper stylized, and it's the monster in the basement sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
and then Buffalo Bill's house is straight out of fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And that's probably because they're both Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Buffalo Bill are inspired by the same guy. So, I think Wisconsin's Ed Gein. I think he was from Wisconsin. I don't know. Sorry to Wisconsin if he's not from there.
I don't think anybody would want to claim that guy.
A lot of serial killers have come from Wisconsin. There's something up there.
Something in the water.
Something, and those girls who stabbed their friend over Slender Man are from Wisconsin.
Oh fuck! Really?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So something's going on in Wisconsin, and also Rich Evans is from Wisconsin.
Oh well, that's the missing link right there.
More horrors. Okay, I don't know if you want to cut because last time I got really dark.
No, it's all right.
Well. For those who don't know about Ed Gein, this is about to get a little dark. He's called a serial killer, but they only ever proved that he killed 2 people. But his main thing was grave robbing, and he would take corpses and skin them, and he decorated his house with the skins of human beings. He had lampshades made out of human skin and necklaces with human teeth, all that fun stuff. He also kept his mother's corpse preserved in a room, which is referenced in this film briefly, and it's also referenced in the film Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he killed a woman and was immediately caught. But he was always known as a local kind of weirdo. A lot of people didn't really know about him, and they didn't go near his house. And no one knew that deep inside he was making a woman suit out of skin. Every neighborhood's got one of those creepy old houses that you kind of don't know too much about, but you pass it every day. Or you've heard stories about it. And then one of the stories that came out about Ed Gein's house is that sometimes at night, people could see a ghostly woman dancing in the backyard. So that was probably Ed. So there you go, folks.
That's scary as shit. I remember the story, but it's still scary as shit.
It scares me telling it. It's fucking terrifying. Ghost is scary. A ghost woman is scary. But then when you find out what it really is, it actually ends up being more terrifying. So Ed Gein, All-American. Good, and there's a couple inspirations for the Buffalo Bill character, including Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy did the thing where he'd fake an injury to get help from a woman that he would then kill. Fucking piece of shit. And then Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who would throw bodies into rivers. And then one of them, I guess, was the Green River. So he got the name the Green River Killer. Also, I should point out, these movies are essentially about, criminal profiling. And I think I mentioned briefly in the Manhunter episode that some people consider criminal profiling to be a pseudoscience.
Yes, you did.
None of these people were caught through criminal profiling. They all get caught by like accident or by like evidence. Did I mention the way BTK got caught in the episode we did?
I don't think you did.
I should tell that one.
Okay, go ahead.
Because it's great.
All right.
So BTK, he killed like entire families. BTK was a real monster. He was the inspiration for the Red Dragon Killer. And he did it for like decades, and they could never catch him, and they tried everything. And he disappeared for like a full decade, and then he started like writing letters to the police again saying like, oh, I've got my next family picked out, and I'm going to attack. And when the world will soon know the fear BTK yet again. All that, bullshit. Then he wrote a letter to the news saying, hey, if I send you a floppy disk, will you be able to trace my computer through the floppy disk? And the news was like, no, we wouldn't be able to, but they totally could. So he gave him a floppy disk. And they checked, and they figured out what computer it was last used on and who did it. And it was a guy named Dennis Rader, and it was he did it on his church's computer.
Wow.
Yeah. So fucking, like, they thought BTK was, like, this criminal mastermind. Fucking gets caught by that. Like, the only reason he got away with it for so long was luck. And that's what so criminal profiling hasn't really ever caught anyone. It has been helpful in developing motive, which is an important thing if you go to trial.
All of this is fantasy, even though it's dealing with very real, like, murder.
Yeah, it's
the way
all
they go
very
about
real. It's all very real stuff, but the whole idea of like these mastermind serial killers really isn't true. The only one that was kind of that way was like Ted Bundy. He was just a fucking he was like the devil. He was like the worst human being ever. He benefited from growing up in a time where we didn't have the resources that we do now. Now it's very easy to catch serial killers. Oh, well. Although I'm guessing the best serial killer out there no one even knows about.
Well, thanks for that fucking mental image.
I should also mention a lot of them tend to operate in California. So
fuck off. It's only the Zodiac, Ted Cruz,
and the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, and the original Night Stalker, who has not been caught.
Oh, thanks for that.
And was probably in his early 20s when he committed his crimes, so he's probably still alive.
Fuck. Jesus.
So, I just read a book about him, so he's been on my mind lately. So that's what I'm doing in my free time, Diego. I'm reading about serial killers.
Oh, wow. So you're the perfect co-host for this, then.
Yeah, hey.
Speaking of serial killers, let's talk about the big man himself, Hannibal Lecter.
Played by Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
His first time in the role.
His first time, and he would later want it to be his only time, but that's for another podcast.
Depends on the interview he gives.
It depends on the interview he gives. Basically everything after like 2010, he's like, Now
that history hasn't been too kind to the sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, there was a lot of defense of both Hannibal and Red Dragon when they were both first released.
One of those is just fucking bananas to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because, really, they're both good. Hannibal's got a fucked up story. But Red Dragon's a very good story. So even if you're not, like, super into the filmmaking, it's still, like, a decent story.
Yeah. Anthony Hopkins won an Oscar, and he's, like, in 15 minutes of the movie. I think he's barely in it more than the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
He's in it about 16 minutes exactly, I think.
Oh, wow.
That's what I read.
And he gives a hell of a performance. I mean, he's very big but also kind of creepy. Like, he kind of just lasers in on Clarice Starling when they first meet.
Well, that first meeting is one of the best moments in any movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because, like, she's supposed to give a criminal profile of him. And also, most audiences, I'm guessing, including myself, had not seen Manhunter before seeing, because it's the same trick that gets pulled in Manhunter. But Silence of the Lambs was probably the public's first introduction to Lecter, and you think she's like doing a fairly basic profile of him, and then he just turns the tables on her halfway through, where he calls her on some of her bullshit, and kind of gets to why she's really there, and she doesn't even know why she's really there, and so she's a little embarrassed by that.
Even if you hadn't seen Manhunter, or Manhunter didn't even exist, the very telling statement when Lecter asks if she's one of Jack Crawford's. It implies a long history there between the two. And that maybe she's not the first one he sent.
Mm-hmm. And if you're an aficionado, you know he's referencing Will Graham, who in the book I believe is mentioned. And I think he got disfigured at the end of Red Dragon, so he doesn't go out very much anymore. So
yeah, he gets stabbed in the fucking face, right?
Yeah, I believe he gets stabbed right in the face.
Yeah, so fuck.
That would ruin anyone's weekend.
Yeah. And Manhunter's just like a slice across the face, and he's like, it's all right.
Yeah, he gets the shit kicked out of him, and then he's like, all right, I'm fine.
Yeah. But no, that is an incredible first meeting. I could see someone being initially underwhelmed with Anthony Hopkins in this if they're just watching it for the first time now. Because even though it is a very like Hollywood performance, it's played a little more quiet than I think someone might be used to.
I think there's like if you've been built up that this movie's the Hannibal Lecter movie, you're going to be very confused because he's a small part of the story, really. If you have the really shitty Blu-ray edition of Silence of the Lambs, he's like, they replaced Clarice's face with his face. So again, people will be like, oh, Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs. And really, he's just a very important character in the story. And I also mentioned that I think if this movie was released like today, people would complain about the fact that his like subplot where he escapes doesn't play into the main narrative entirely. Like that feels like something like audiences would walk away from and be like, oh, why even have it in the movie? Like a movie's a fucking checklist.
Yeah, and that checklist approach to movies is bullshit.
Or more like a bingo board. If you get 5 in a row, bingo, you got a great movie.
Yeah, there's it's more than just about like connecting pieces. It's about telling a story and capturing a mood, and movies are more complicated than that.
I blame the nostalgia critic.
But yeah, okay, so Clarice Starling.
That's not what the people are here for, Diego. They're here for hard truths.
Jodie Foster is Clarice Starling. I forgot how good she was when I rewatched it.
Oh, she's fucking great in this.
A perfect, like, even just like in sense of a performance, she is the perfect counterpoint to Anthony Hopkins, because he's this big, imposing, evil figure, and she's, physically she's smaller, but she's resilient in a way that is more understated than I think people give her credit for. And I know I might get some shit for this, but I think Jodie Foster and an actress like Kristen Stewart are cut from the same cloth in that their performances aren't very quote-unquote Hollywood, but they're very honest emotionally.
I wouldn't have believed you a few years ago, but I agree now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's actually, you know what? She might actually make a good Clarice if they bring this thing back.
Oh, fuck. I wasn't even considering that, and now that's all I'm going to think about for, like, the rest of the episode.
Her father was a cop and got shot. And that's part of what drives her. In the book, I think he was a mall security guard. I don't think he was a cop in the book.
Well, they just wanted to streamline it, I'm sure, you know?
And I think in the book, there's, like, a whole thing made about the fact, I think what happened was he cocked his gun, like, when he wasn't supposed to, and that made the robber panic and shoot him. And I think that, like, has influenced Clarice in a way where, like, she's very, like, strict about following the rules. At least in the book, I think. I could be completely wrong. It's been a while since I read the book. It's a good book, by the way. So what does the Silence of the Lambs mean, Diego?
Well, Clarice Starling has a conversation with Hannibal Lecter where, in exchange for information, he wants to know about her past. And so she starts telling him about this night where she was staying at her family's farm. And she could hear the lambs crying out when they were getting ready for slaughter. And so she tried to save as many as she could, but she only got a little baby one. And so she ran off with it. And she only made it like a mile or something like that, if I remember. And she got picked up by a sheriff or something. And they took her and the sheep back. And she could just hear them crying. And she couldn't do anything about it.
In the book, she steals a horse.
So where does the title come from in the book?
Well, there are lambs, but they wouldn't leave, like in the book.
Ah.
So she gets on a horse and rides away.
That's.
And And she ends up, I think, in an orphan asylum or something like that. An orphanage. I guess they don't call them orphan asylums.
No, I don't think they do that. I
don't think that's a term people use, except me just now. I wanted to let you know, we got like really deep and analytical last time. And we're all making points that like I was like, Dago was making great points, and I was making points that were good, and then it was like awesome. And that hasn't happened this time.
No.
Well, I want to talk about Jack Crawford real quick.
Okay.
Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn. Scott Glenn, who played John Glenn in a movie. And Jack Crawford in the book is more kind of like just tired and doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. In this, he's much more of, he's almost like a surrogate father to Clarice. And even Clarice kind of recognizes this and is kind of put off by it.
Yes.
No. Thanks. I fucking threw the ball into your court.
No. Yeah, you bring up a great point with that, and he's the only one that doesn't like leer over her.
Well, he does a little.
A little, yeah, and
he uses her in very ways that are wrong to do.
But compared to how everyone else makes her feel, I think the camera treats his perspective of her nicer than everyone else, kind of. But like, he's still not.
It's friendlier, definitely.
Yeah, it's friendlier, but he's got an agenda too.
But it still shows that it's similar to. I mean, like, you know, he looks at her the same way Lecter looks at her.
Yeah, just that camera just placed right in front of her. It is so uncomfortable. The way Demi places the camera on these people.
I don't know if you get this feeling, but Lecter's camera seems to feel less judgmental, like the blocking on him, as the movie goes on.
No, I totally agree with that, because he's a fucking monster too, but I could see why she would start confiding in him, more so than just to get information.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one that really treats her as, like, with respect, in his own way, you know?
After being a real dick to her the first time around, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you really get the sense, like, with everyone. There's that great shot in the elevator after Clarice comes into the FBI offices after her run. And then it's just all these guys, like, tower over her. And they're all kind of just, like, leering at her while she has to just wait for the elevator to go up to see Crawford.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great moment, but it's
this movie. Actually, not this movie. The fact that we talked about it a lot in the original episode that is now lost forever. But watching Hannibal made me appreciate how much of that is told visually in this. Because we'll get to Hannibal, but it deals with gender politics in a very clumsy way. Whereas this, there's never really like a scene that draws that much attention to it. Maybe the scene with all the local cops. Where I think it's the most underlined, but they really, and you also kind of get, you know, Clarice's like the inner, her feelings that are very like direct in the book. You can just feel them on the screen here with how she is framed in comparison to all her male colleagues. Even like in little scenes, like her training sequence where she fucks up for like a second. It's like a 30-second shot. I don't know how to even. Where the guy puts the gun at the back of her head and gives her shit for not checking the corner, and then is like to the other guys like, "You did a good job, but you're dead, Clarice."
Yeah.
And it's like there's all these weird like male power plays going on. There's even a scene where a bunch of dudes running past them like look at their ass. Remember that?
Yeah, I like that she has basically another confidant, you know? Just another woman dealing with the same shit as she does, who doesn't get involved with the case at all. Just another person in this world. Like, not all movies need to do this, but I think for a story like this, and a character like Clarice, it's nice to have that feel more full, you know? Like a full experience.
Well, it's good for movies to admit that women have friends.
Yes.
Of the same gender. Because that doesn't seem to happen enough in movies. Thinking about it, did she have like a confidant? She didn't have a confidant in like Hannibal at all, did she?
No, in Hannibal, it's her against the world.
Does she talk to another woman at all in Hannibal?
Holy fuck, I don't think she does.
That's crazy. I'm thinking there might be one scene where she's talking with like a bunch of different investigators at once, but that's like very brief. I think there might have been another woman.
I can't think of a single one. Holy shit.
So,
we'll get to our thoughts on Hannibal next time, but yeah.
It's a good little preview for what we might have been talking about.
Yeah.
Man, there's such a drop-off in that department. Because like I'm saying, like I said, like there's that scene where these guys are running past them where like they kind of check them out, these joggers, but there's not like that much attention drawn to it. Like it's impossible to miss, but it's not like this big thing. It's not like, if there was a cut there and we cut to the guys and then we cut back to the women, it would have taken up more of our mind. But instead it just becomes like this thing. It's like, oh, this is the reality of what she lives with, as opposed to like a dominating thing. Because I think some filmmakers, not to say who, but some filmmakers seem to think that like sexism only exists as like very obvious things and not, the more subtle, I guess what they call microaggressions, which it usually is.
Have you seen Rachel Getting Married?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's very good, though.
Yeah, it is very good. That's another Jonathan Demme movie. And, okay, this is what I wanted to bring up. We're kind of hopping around this time, but I think we finally got a groove going, so whatever, fuck it. Jonathan Demme's...
You better not cut anything that is happening.
Jonathan Demme's trajectory as a director is very... you can't really trace, like, a through line. He just does movies that, like, interest him, I guess. And they're all very interesting on their own, and they're all very different. And Rachel Getting Married, I think it's one of the only other ones I've seen, but just like by looking up what he's done, you can kind of tell he's
got a great career.
Yeah, he's very eclectic tastes. And with Rachel Getting Married and Silence of the Lambs, I think he's one of the few male directors who's like able to understand as much as they can the female perspective and how to fully tell a story that doesn't feel like it has the male gaze over it,
Yeah. Yeah, he seems good in that department. He also did Ricky and the Flash, I think was his last movie.
I never saw that, but I'm a
big... I actually liked it.
Diablo Cody. I love Diablo Cody. And
she's a good writer.
Yeah, she gets a lot of shit, but...
because Juno was like such a thing.
Oh, yeah. I like Juno.
I like Juno too, but it became... But like, do you remember when like people were like, wow, this is really like authentic as to how teenagers speak?
Yeah.
And I saw that when I was a teenager.
Yeah, me too. And I was like,
I was a freshman in high school, and I'm like, no one talks like this. But it's just kind of stylized, and I don't think people got that. Hey, she's got an Oscar. Good for her. I hope she keeps doing more movies.
Yeah, me too. Quality writer.
Maybe she'll get Jason Reitman to make a good movie again. Because it's been a while. I just got a message from my friend Shannon asking if she wants me to help design her Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. Keep this in the episode.
That I will keep in the episode. My
good friend Shannon. And Ethan is still a fucking dick for not liking Manhunter.
Daniel Doherty. I hope I said that right. Daniel, tell me if I didn't say it right. He didn't like Manhunter that much when he first saw it, but he said he's going to rewatch it, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, fucking better, you coward.
But yeah, Jonathan Demme's a quality director, and it's...
Rest in peace. I don't know what's so funny. I mean, the man died.
Did he? Wait, what?
Jonathan Demme died like last year.
What the fuck? Oh, shit, that's right.
You didn't know that?
I totally forgot.
I thought you were laughing just because I said that really awkwardly.
Well, it was awkward, but I totally forgot.
I was about to say rest in power, but...
I'm so sorry. Oh, wow.
That's like laughing at 9/11.
What?
How could you? That's kind of a Norm Macdonald bit. That's just me doing Norm.
I think Norm Macdonald would do as Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, he'd be great. He'd just confuse people by going on like long tangents, and then by the end he would be like, haha, I've escaped. But it was a tragedy. Did you just spill water? I heard water spill.
No, I was trying to take a drink from my tea and I almost spit it out.
That would have been great. Fucking make you choke to death in the middle of an episode. What are we talking about?
I was gonna try to shift it to Buffalo Bill.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Buffalo Bill at all yet.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about the elephant in the room on this one.
Buffalo Bill's a character who has not aged well, and as good as the rest of this movie is, it is something that even Jonathan Demme talked about after its release, after he faced criticism for it.
Well, also, you say in it that he hasn't aged well, but there was backlash to it like almost immediately. Like, it isn't a new thing for people. Like, we try to pretend when people get outraged about stuff that it's new, but it's really been going on forever. It seems the main difference is that now people are actually listening.
Yeah. People, like, we all, like, shit talk social media and stuff, but it's been a good tool to bring forward, like, justifiable points of discussion, like Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, you can see, like, I know a lot more people that I would not have known without social media.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing this show.
Yeah, and I would hate to think if I lived in a world where Buffalo Bill was the closest I got to understanding what a transgendered person was.
And honestly, for some people, that's as far as they're even willing to go. This fictional creation, you know.
Well, I mean, fictional, but we are, like I said, this is actually based a little in fact. With Ed Gein was trying to make a woman suit for himself to wear, much like Buffalo Bill was. But this movie does very much, because it brings up the transgender thing more. And it makes a very clear point that Buffalo Bill is not transsexual. That he thinks he's transsexual, but he really isn't. That's its whole own can of worms.
Yeah. Yeah,
like telling someone that you think you're transsexual, but you're not.
In response to the critiques, Demme replied that Buffalo Bill, quote, wasn't a gay character. He was a tormented man who hated himself and wished he was a woman because that would have made him as far away from himself as he could possibly be. Mm-hmm. Demme added that he came to realize that there's a tremendous absence of positive gay characters in movies. So he recognized the complaints, and I think at least addressing them is important. Doesn't mean it's enough, but that he took that extra step is nice. Mm-hmm. Even if it was just PR. Like, even if the most cynical version of that is just PR, it's nice to have someone say that.
Well, in a day and age where we do have filmmakers that would literally respond with "grow up," it's good to see.
Yeah. Like, it'd be crazy if someone remade Death Wish, given our current political climate and how guns are killing Americans faster than anything else on the planet, basically. And then you respond with, hey, it's just a movie, man.
Yeah, it'd be weird if you didn't, like, at least give it, like, this meta edge to it. Or, like, tried to find a way to make it comment on how we glorify these type of revenge killings. Yeah. And what that might be doing to society.
Instead, glorifying it itself.
Instead of just making a fucking movie.
Yeah.
Because when I want to go to a movie, I want to get to the end of it and be like, that was just a movie. That'll make me remember it.
I thought you liked Ant-Man.
I will break you, Diego. I feel like pointing out that, like you can trace back, like, the gay as serial killer thing. Like, back to Psycho, which is, like, the first slasher film. Because, Norman Bates dresses up as his mother. Once you notice, though, that, like, villains are so often coded as gay, like, it's impossible not to see.
I don't remember what show it was, but it was, like, from the 60s or something, like, not NYPD Blue, because that's relatively new, but, like, one of those old school cop shows where they were doing, like, some investigation into, like, these neighborhood hoodlums or something like that. And they're like, oh, yeah, they're smoking the marijuana and drinking alcohol. The reefer, drinking alcohol, and participating in homosexual activity. And it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, what the fuck?
I saw one of those, like, 50s, like, like, stranger danger, like, videos. And it basically used the term pedophile and homosexual interchangeably.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. And this is stuff they showed the kids in school.
Oh.
So if you want to know why your parents are a little fucked up, this is the stuff the government was teaching them.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't think art influences society, you're wrong.
Yeah. Although now it's like it's weird when it gets when that coding gets so deep. Like, does it still affect how people view things? I think like Buffalo Bill's a little different, but like you get like characters like I think like something like Ratigan from fucking The Great Mouse Detective. Is fucking like got like some coded gay stuff going on with them. But like would anyone pick up on that if they didn't know?
I didn't know.
You can't tell?
I haven't seen it.
He's voiced by fucking Vincent Price.
I haven't seen it since I was in 8th grade, so that's my excuse. I guess I'll...
He's got like a whole chorus of dudes that just sing his praises.
I mean, like, who doesn't want that, though?
Oh, yeah. So I want to enter every room.
Yeah. Except I'd exchange the men for porgs. And just listen to them going... Yeah.
You know, porgs were only put in to like cover up all the birds that were on that island.
Yeah, fucking puffin. That's great. That's the best thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
That is beautiful.
That's fucking movie making right there, folks.
That's art from adversity right there, you fucks.
Fuck Jaws. It's about Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it's about fucking puffins fucking up your shot.
But seriously, that's a stroke of genius.
But in order to track him down, she'll have to match wits.
I'll help you catch him, Clary.
Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head.
With the darkest of all minds.
Just do your job, but never forget what he is.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
So, Buffalo Bill. He's a very problematic character.
Yeah.
That doesn't change the fact that he still is pretty terrifying in this film.
Ted Levine.
Yes.
As James Buffalo Bill Gum is so good. So fucking good in this movie. And still scary as shit.
Puts the lotion on his skin or else it gets the hose again.
Oh, that whole sequence where he's making the senator's daughter rub the lotion all over her body, and then like she starts screaming when she sees the bloody finger scratches and the nails in the well, and he just starts imitating her screams. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I forgot how scary this movie was, too. Like, I think it's scarier than Manhunter, for sure. Manhunter's creepy at times, but it's more of like a mood piece that I can kind of watch casually or just be totally honed in on. Silence of the Lambs, it makes me pay attention to it.
If you go in clean, this is a terrifying film.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was my dad told me he saw this in theaters and people actually walked out. It was so scary.
Yeah, because I mean, before this, it really wasn't anything like it in terms of the serial killer genre stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of Seven's like a couple years after this. So it kind of becomes a bigger thing because then eventually it gets really dumb with stuff like The Cell.
I never saw that, actually.
They go into a serial killer's dreams. Turns out he was abused as a child.
Oh, wow. I'm noticing a trend here.
We really needed a machine to tell us that. It's not like that's a factor in like 90% of serial killers.
But yeah, this movie is horrifying, and I think specifically the end sequence, which is so intense when Starling finally goes up against Buffalo Bill, but she doesn't know it yet, and how that sequence plays out where neither of them know who the other really are yet, and what they're capable of. And so the geography when Demi establishes the shot with like the gun on the counter, the kitchen counter, and then they're both on the other side of the room, and oh fuck, that is so intense. I was like clenching my seat watching that again.
And first, before that, you get the fake out with how you think the FBI has found Buffalo Bill's home, and then it turns out they're in the wrong place, and that's edited together really well. And then, because, like, I mean, you kind of get the feeling that the FBI isn't really going to get him in that moment, because, like, what movie would end like that? But what you probably aren't thinking is that it's Clarice showing up at his house alone, which is a great reveal. And I also love, one of the things I really love about that is that, like, the first two rooms of Buffalo Bill's house look fairly normal. And then, like, as you, like, just start entering it, like, it gets more and more fucked up. Like,
that's such a good, like, way of using production to help visually tell your story too. Like, yeah, he seems it's a little messy, but you know, it's nothing to be worried about. But you go further into the house, it's just like, holy fuck, this is like a prison.
He's got a fucking dungeon somehow. I don't know how he has a dungeon that fucking big underneath that house, but hey. I gotta say, the little shimmy that Buffalo Bill does when he pretends to give himself up and runs away is one of my favorite moments in cinema history.
When he drops the cards?
When he drops the cards, and then he kind of, like, hits the counter as he's running out the room. The terrifying Buffalo Bill. Well, it's almost like someone yoinks him off screen.
Like, what do they use? That old, like, cane to pull people off stage?
Yeah, it's a fucking amateur night at the Apollo.
And the sequence beneath the house.
Buffalo Bill is not wearing socks in that scene.
Is he not?
He's in his bare feet, and I always found that odd.
Does that make him more quiet?
I don't know. I just think he's a weirdo. I don't think everything needs a bigger explanation for that guy.
It's different from Francis Dollarhide, where you compared him to the movie theater ticket ripper. It's like they're a little off, but this guy is just like, holy shit.
Yeah, this guy is one you report the flight attendant to.
Yeah.
You don't know what pain is. Because the last thing you see before the lights go out is the body that's decomposing in the bathtub. And this might be a callback to a film, Wait Until Dark, with Audrey Hepburn, where she plays a blind woman that's being terrorized by these robbers. And she lives in a basement. She's blind, so she doesn't need the windows. And there's a scene in it where the lights go out, and you only hear what's happening. Go watch it, because there's the scene that happens after the blackout scene is one of the genuinely great shock moments in all of cinema. I fucking freaked the fuck out.
Will it make my head spin like Don't Look Now?
It won't make your head spin, but you will it's one of those oh my god, I almost got hit by a car moments.
Okay. I basically lost my equilibrium after I saw that movie.
That's a
whoa.
I had that ending spoiled for me though.
Oh, that sucks.
You know, Silence of the Lambs won 5 Oscars.
So close to the way you're going to catch him. Do you realize that?
Oh, Clarice, your problem is you need to get more fun out of life.
You told me you don't spook easily.
You call this easy, sir?
Lecter's missing hand arm.
Man's a raving maniac. Who knows what he'll do?
We didn't mention that Dr. Chilton is in this movie.
No, we did not mention Dr. Chilton.
Oh, there we go. He's in it.
It's more of a character this time than Manhunter.
Mm-hmm. He's in Manhunter, but for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Because
all right.
Like all Michael Mann movies, he is a man at work, and that's it.
Explain to me how Hannibal Lecter escaped, because he stole Chilton's pen, right? I don't think we see the scene when he actually takes it, but there's a scene where Chilton can't find his pen, and we get that close up on Lecter.
Oh, visual storytelling.
Yep, that's something we will not see again for a while in this series.
That still works, totally.
We will see it next week. It's just kind of hit you over the head with a frying pan.
Yeah. Oh fuck! I wish I said this during the episode. But it would be like if you got a more subdued version of Michael Bay to adapt Hannibal.
That's kind of Ridley Scott's thing.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Which usually works for me.
It only works for me on occasion. Anyway.
Like Alien Covenant.
No.
Last time you brought up a very interesting point with the...
I did?
The stalking sequence beneath the house. Where Buffalo Bill clearly has the upper hand on Clarice. And he almost kills her. He almost touches her. And if he hadn't have been a total fucking creep and breathed on her and just almost touched her with his bare hands, he could have killed her. But because he fucks up like that for being a fucking creep and a monster, she gets to jump on him instead and just unloads into his chest.
Wow, that's a good point. I can't believe I made that.
But it's a very satisfying shooting
sequence. Did I really say that last time?
You did, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it's a satisfying death for a villain, and there's no tragedy to this like there kind of is with Francis Dollarhide. It's just... Yeah,
Francis Dollarhide's given more humanity than the Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, Buffalo Bill is played basically just like a monster.
Yeah, he's pretty much... And both the books actually humanize all the killers a lot more. Because we get more history with them. That would be difficult to go into in a movie. Even Lecter is given... I would think Lecter is given too much backstory almost. Because even to today, we don't totally know what makes a serial killer. We just know, what signs there are. And usually they experience some sort of abuse that maybe influences how they abuse others. So.
And if you've seen Hannibal Rising, you know that... Yeah.
I don't remember the movie.
Oh, my God. Oh,
I know they brought it up on this show a little bit. They've talked... Because, Hannibal, the book, goes into his history, but... I'd never read Hannibal Rising, the book, and I don't remember the movie at all.
I remember the movie.
It sounds like something I shouldn't want to watch.
No. But we're
Sounds
gonna.
Like it's over 2 hours.
I can't fucking believe that. But something interesting happened at the end of this movie while the rest of this stuff has been playing out. Hannibal Lecter escaped at one point, and it kind of doesn't make that much logical sense. I mean, it's played enough to where you can keep up with what's happening.
Well, this is a movie where a dude cuts another man's face off and uses that to fucking escape. And you totally buy it because this movie has won you over by then.
And it's scary as shit when he rises in the ambulance, just slowly, like fucking Michael Myers from Halloween.
I mean, think of how awkward that would have landed if, like, the movie hadn't really won you over by then. Like, think about, like, if this movie had ended with, like, someone's, like, exposed brain while they were still alive. And, like,
that would be stupid.
A prolonged sequence involving that. But, like, you know, but the movie hadn't won you over. It would have felt really dumb.
It's funny that you bring that up. For no particular reason yet. And, yeah, so Hannibal Lecter escapes, and Clarice understands the relationship to that point so well that she understands that because there is an odd respect between the two, that he will not come after her. Because she didn't show him kindness, but she showed him understanding and empathy, something that he's not familiar with up to this point. And I always thought that was so interesting, the relationship between these two characters.
Well, I think it's more that she opened up to him more, and he would consider it rude to be like, hey, if you open that up that much to me, it'd be rude for me to, like, come after you. But he does kind of make it clear that, like, if you come after me, I'll probably kill you. Which is a little odd considering his behavior in the next film.
Logically speaking, the movie doesn't even make sense, the next one. It's the whole bag of worms which we talk about.
We had a great time with good old Mason Verger.
Call down! Call down!
Well, we just talked about one of the most important films in cinema history. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't know about you.
I am so sorry to humanity for releasing this episode to you.
This was great.
Yeah, this is going to be a short-ass episode.
It should be like 5 minutes.
I know.
Diego, I only want you to keep in the stuff that matters. Delete all the bullshit.
So we're looking at like an hour 30, hour 35.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Matt, Silence of the Lambs. Would you recommend it to people before or after watching Manhunter?
Oh, all right. I would maybe start here. Because that's what I did. My watch order would be Silence of the Lambs, Manhunter, Hannibal the film, and then Hannibal the TV series.
Oh, Matt, but isn't there another adaptation of
No!
Thank you, Clarice. Thank you.
We're leading into the Hannibal episode, but really we're leading into the Red Dragon episode.
Yeah, fuck. Hannibal, up next, directed by Sir Ridley Scott, one of the most controversial directors on this podcast, because otherwise he's pretty much critically acclaimed.
He's like one of the most well-regarded directors in the industry, and I talk shit about him constantly.
Well, I think that's super interesting, though, because I can leave this in the episode. He's one of the most well-regarded directors in the industry, like you said, but in places like film Twitter and like between movie fans, a lot of people actually don't like a lot of his work.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a can of worms, that one.
He's a mystery.
He's a mystery.
Got to cut that head open and get into his brain.
Maybe feed it to some pigs.
Yep. Maybe push a guy in a wheelchair over into a pit of pigs.
Matt, where can the people find you before we butcher this shit anymore?
I'm at EmperorOTN at Twitter.com. Follow me for more irreverent shit like this entire episode.
I'm at DEGGO Waffles. The Waffle Press on Twitter. Like, subscribe. If you didn't like and subscribe anyways. And see if we find something you do like. Check out the Patreon.
Fuck off.